Welcome back to BHAW Army Wrestling Radio. I'm your host, Brian Rowan. I have Ty Reedy here with me.
Hey, everybody.
And today we welcome on 2016 graduate, Brian Harvey. He's a three-time NCAA qualifier, EIWA finalist. He beat Jaden Bernstein about 65 times in his college career, Indiana state champ, and also has an extraordinary first name. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Hey, glad to be here. I like listening to this stuff.
Yeah, glad to have you on. For all the listeners out there, I screwed up the initial intro and called him an NCAA finalist, not an EIWA finalist, so we had to do that over again.
I had to
hold my pushing past it. We're gonna have a good show. I can feel it.
Get the startles out. Yeah.
For all the listeners out there, we haven't talked about it on the show, but Ty has a wrestling poster behind him. So if you're watching this on Apple Podcasts, sorry you don't see the visual, but go to our YouTube channel. Every single time we have a guest on here, since Ty's been the host, they're like, that's a sweet poster, but we haven't described it yet. So Ty, tell the listeners out there about that poster.
Real quick, this is a Nike. I don't know if you can see the emblem up in the top corner. It's a Nike poster from like the early 90s. My best friend growing up, his older brother was a state champ for my high school and had this poster on his door. And I saw it one day, and I'd never been introduced to wrestling, and that's how I found out about wrestling. I asked him, "Hey, what's going on here?" He's like, "Oh, it's wrestling. That's what I do. You should try it out." And then my best friend told me I was too fat and slow to wrestle, and I wouldn't be any good. So obviously I ended up wrestling, and then years later, I think he was packing up for college or something, but he gave me that poster, so I had it framed. I carried it around. I think on all my ETS moves. It was rolled up in some tube, and I finally, after I got out of the Army, had it framed up. So it's in my office.
That's a cool story. That'll never get old, even as all the future guests come on who don't listen to the previous episodes.
Yeah.
When they ask about it, I enjoy it every time. But today we're going to focus on Brian Harvey. So Brian, before we get into kind of your past and growing up in Indiana, let's just hear like what you're up to these days, where you're stationed, what's going on.
Yeah, I'm currently stationed at Fort Bragg, living in Southern Pines. I'm currently in the PYSOP Alpha course. I finished up Soft Triple C a couple months ago. I actually finished up the Alpha course for PYSOP, and now I'm in language. And I'm about month 2 in modern standard Arabic, and it's been fun, and so it's been good being here. I actually caught up with some of the wrestlers this past weekend and did a clinic up in Williamsburg, Virginia, with Logan Everett. I know he's been on the podcast, and then Tony Rizzoliti, 2017 grad, and so I'm getting back into getting my wrestling shoes back on. It's been a while.
Now you're in the the PSYOP, is that separate than the Q course? Is that
so it's just a separate pipeline. I guess I should explain to that for people who don't know what PSYOP is. It's psychological operations, and it's one of the 3 tribes within special operations. There's civil affairs, what and you heard Alex Dahl with special forces, and then there's the other tribe, kind of the smallest branch of the Army, which is psychological operations. And so all 3 tribes are together for the soft Captain Career course, and then we split off for our own independent MOS or Alpha course, and then come back together for language. So I have a couple of CA guys and SF guys in my Arabic course.
How's it going so far in Arabic?
It's been different. It's kind of like I had to go back to like all my old study methods at West Point, because like back to a course that I had no understanding in, kind of like physics, where you go into that course and you don't have any background in it until I was at West Point. So with language, it's been a humbling experience, and it's like there is no shame. Kind of, you hear yourself kind of with the audio, and my instructor just has a headache as we're trying to get through this throughout the day, because we spend about 6 hours each day. And it also is a humbling experience about how how little I know English, because she's trying to say all this proper English, like kind of rules with like prepositions and like the accusative tense and stuff like that. And we're trying to remember that as we're going through the course. And it's just like, I haven't done that since middle school, but our instructor's from Iraq. And so she's just kind of like trying to make it work. Well, she's originally from Iraq. And so she's trying to help us, you know, like age together strong kind of throughout this course.
Well, then do that. Like, there's no way I could do the language. Like, I barely made it through German at school. Like,
yeah, and so it's a neat opportunity because this is my job now, is to learn this language. I mean, I don't have other duties, don't have anyone else in charge of me, and so they do a pretty good job of. And it's like the most stability of like 9 to 4 every day for 6 months. And so you kind of get in the routine. It's just at the end of the day, you kind of just got to walk away from studying because your brain is just absolutely fried. And like, and like you'll think of words, like look at a garden and think of it, what garden is in Arabic or something like that. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it just feels weird at the end of the day. So
now, when you come out of that course, Brian, do you know what level of proficiency are they expecting you to have?
So there's a special test for just soft, which is the OPI. It's just an oral practical exam, which is a 1+ level. But the equivalent to that is a 1 on the DLPT, the Defense Language Proficiency Test. It's just kind of in our job, we're going to be mostly speaking, and the DLPT doesn't have a speaking portion. And so they designed this test just for that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So,
sorry, go ahead, Brian.
So it's like, it's a lot to do. And like my instructor, how Arabic is least made, or like languages like Chinese, there's a lot of like high level grammar and like rules for it, where our teacher's kind of pressing the easy button a little bit, saying, hey, you'll learn this kind of after in your own individual study, but I'm just trying to get you to the level of the test, and which is understanding, because like if you go out to California for the, what's it called, the Defense
PLI?
Language PLI, yeah, the same course is 18 months, and so it's
Brian, sorry, B-Row, last question. Sorry to cut you off, Ryan, but
all good.
I think you know, for me, I know it's interesting for me to hear. But so after you get done with this course and all that, and since it is the smallest branch of the Army, I've never had any interactions. Well, I've had interactions with like PSYOPs, like soldiers, but not like officers or someone I think that's been through what you're going through. So what's your job at the end of this whole thing, and what's your task?
Okay, so once I graduate, well, knock on wood, finish the language course, I will go into one of my regional aligned battalions. So for me, it will either be CENTCOM or AFRICOM, just because Arabic is in one of those, I mean, in both areas. And I'll become take detachment command, just kind of like SF, and I'll be in charge. They keep changing, and it's also dependent on the mission itself, but they keep changing kind of how many NCOs and how many soldiers are actually in that team. But I'll take that, and then I'll be assigned to some, like for a deployment, I'll be assigned to a task force at a planning level. I mean, it's pretty much staff work for me while the enlisted handle most of the actual ground stuff when it comes to psychological operations.
Cool, man. That's awesome.
I always kind of wondered, like on deployments, like I never saw a PSYOPs like officer. It was always like, you know, a junior enlisted and a senior, like more senior enlisted, like an E6 or E7 together.
Right.
They were like in charge of a whole base, you know. So
yeah,
I feel like you'd be really detached, you know, really like spread out in deployments. And
yeah, from the Alpha course, from what we know about kind of what our job will be, because it's just changing so much with kind of how the Information Warfare Center and what's going on in the world right now with technology. It's not uncommon for PSYOP officers to have like a team, or like I say team, like 1 or 2 people in one country like for example, for CENTCOM, like in Yemen or in Saudi Arabia or Iraq, and then they're pretty much at the task force level handling the multiple missions that are going on within to support the task force.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time you won't actually see your team except for like virtual. You won't actually see them in person on a deployment.
Gotcha.
That's really cool.
Best of luck with all that.
Yeah.
We'll tie that in later in the episode as we kind of progress through the time. But we got to take it back to the beginning now.
Yeah, back to the the Indiana route.
Yeah, so take us back to Indiana. We have the Young brothers, so the fire bloodline to West Point out of Indiana. So curious, number one, let's start at the very beginning, how you got introduced to wrestling, how you got into it, and then how you got introduced to West Point. I'm hoping that Paul Young has something to do with this story.
Yeah, he does. And so for people who don't know, I have a younger brother, Benjamin, who was we just recently graduated, not this past year, or 2020. And he was on another, I think the senior class episode on here. But we started wrestling. Actually, my dad would take us to church. So I was 6, my brother was 4, and he would take us to church, and there was Sunday school. But like we maybe just like normal brothers, and I know it happened in the Young episode where they get in fights. And so my brother and I would always run out of Sunday school, and like it's a big church, and our teachers would find us fighting just out in the parking lot, just 4 and 6. And then the youth minister happened to be the assistant wrestling coach for the high school. And so he made the proposition to my dad of like, hey, if they're going to keep coming to church, how about you, and we allow them, for our Sunday school teachers, to deal with us. How about they join the wrestling team? And so I grew up in a place called New Palestine, Indiana, about 30 minutes southeast of Indianapolis. And so a very rural area. And that's where we started our wrestling careers. Going through kind of to high school, my high school career, I actually went to a private high school inside of Indianapolis called Cathedral High School. And it was a pretty good program. Actually, that's how I knew Dan Young was my teammate. My freshman year, Dan Young's senior year, lost it when Dan talked about his finals match, kind of go back and forth. That was to my teammate. And so I knew Dan that way. And I knew he was at Culver. And then I remember actually watching Paul Young, his state finals match. And then there was always IU versus Penn State or IU versus Purdue. And we would go to those wrestling dual mates. So I knew the Youngs kind of throughout high school. So I placed, I got 6th, 5th, and 5th. And going into my senior year, I was mainly looking at Purdue University and some other kind of, and just kind of background. Both my parents went to Purdue. Both my older sisters went to Purdue. Both grandparents on both sides went to Purdue. And my grandfather actually was a professor on department. And going to this, my junior year in high school didn't go how I wanted. And so I wasn't really on the national radar. I thought I should have, I was a state contender, but the tournament didn't work out. And I never had any stellar like Fargo placing or anything like that. But going into my senior year, also I kept growing too. So that also made it really hard. I wrestled 174 in college, and I wrestled 103 freshman year, 112, and then 130. And then I wrestled 160 my senior year. And so, the junior year was kind of a tough cut. But going into my senior year, I did a visit to Purdue, and I felt all right about it. But then I didn't know what West Point was until, I got some letters, but I thought it was some D3 school, and I kind of just tossed them. And it wasn't until they sent it to my coach who knew what it was. And then he kind of just hit me in the back of the head saying, like, what are you thinking? Like, do you know what type of opportunity this is? And that's when Young started calling me. I filled out my coach, high school coach, called my mom, and my mom pretty much insisted that I fill out the questionnaire and I get in contact with the wrestling coaches, because I didn't do any of that summer program or anything like that. This was October of my senior year. And it was, and I was about to sign with Purdue in October of my senior year. It was about, like, I think that's when the signing day happened. And that's when Paul Young and Heskett kind of both called me, and we decided to do like an unofficial visit to West Point. And I'm grateful that I did that, and I got to see West Point for what it was. And because I never truly knew how special it was. Like, my mom always talked it up, but I didn't really get it. And I'm glad she kind of pushed me to try it out. Going in, I didn't actually commit to West Point till my junior year, or no, not my junior, I mean January of my senior year. The reason being is I was under the assumption I was going to go to the prep school. And as we talk about grades and whatnot, I didn't get accepted to the prep school. And
make the cut.
I'm not throwing any shade, but David Farr got accepted to the prep school, and he did all this master stuff, and I didn't. So we were on the same recruiting trip, and we split paths there. But I always find that funny. So I kind of decommitted to West Point until, because like I was under this assumption that I was going to the prep school, and also I don't know if I told you, B-Row, about my interview, my congressman interview didn't go so well because I told them I was going to the prep school, and kind of like, I don't know why I'm here. And and then I found out I didn't get into the prep school, and that just caused a bunch of headaches for everybody.
Did you have to redo the interview, or what or find a different?
So what ended up happening was a kid actually from my high school was one of the congressman selectees, and he failed the medical exam, and like he got asthma or something like that. So they immediately, I didn't have a slot until like it was a little bit scary because it was till like February or March until like I was confirmed that I'd been accepted to West Point on my senior year, like post state tournament. So yeah, don't take everything seriously throughout the process. That's my advice to everybody out there.
So going into like your state tournaments, like senior year of high school, did you think like, shoot, like if this thing doesn't work out, like did it push you maybe harder to like win a state title? Because you're like, I if West Point doesn't work out, like I need to win the state title so I can maybe go to Purdue or somewhere else.
Yeah. So it just made me like, because the thing is like like you're going through the tunnel or like the announcements for the state tournament. I mainly felt like this is going to be really embarrassing if like they announced, because they said Brian Harvey going to West Point and everyone's cheering like kind of in the walkout for the state finals. And I was like, if I don't actually get in, I'm going to have to answer to a lot of people like what didn't happen, and I have to explain how I was just, like not thinking this through. Like that was my main concern. But it worked out. I got accepted, and I got accepted to West Point, and going in, I think I did some wrestling in the summer. This is also a thing, maybe not the best choice I did. I wrestled at Junior Duels, like the 2 days before Beast, and I just showed up to Beast just absolutely tired. Like I flew from Oklahoma straight into Beast. And that was I just like, people didn't tell me, like I thought I could do it, but I didn't know what I was getting into. Again, I didn't fully grasp what West Point was. So yeah. It was just an interesting time. That kind of led to some struggle my freshman year, as I think we'll get into.
So like, I mean, I'd say most cadets coming in like have a good grasp, especially like you know, in the last 15 years and the internet's been around, like you're Googling, you're looking up like what Beast is like. What was like the thing that really stood out to you the most? Because it seemed like, you know, from Beast, like that was like odd that you were like, what?
The first day, like they told me to, I shut my door and they told me to keep it open. I asked them why, and I was like instantly corrected. And that's when I fully grasped it. Like I don't know what's going on, type of deal. And like I had to be taken aside for like marching and and they put me in the back, like even though I'm like somewhat taller, they put me in the back of like the parade because they were just, we couldn't teach this guy, type of deal. And so and then also telling your B squad leader like, hey, I came here to wrestle, and like isn't the great idea. I found out he had like a heartbreaking story about his grandfather like wanting him to like go here, and like he's been having this dream. And yeah, and so I didn't get along with my Beast cadre that much, and yeah, and it was really rough. Yeah, so I didn't really understand the full picture, and like, yeah, I didn't understand the full picture, but I learned. I learned through repetition, I guess.
The cover photo of your episode should be like a picture of like you wrestling like first a year, and then a picture of you as a new cadet, like during Beast, have them side by side.
Just lost in the sauce. I mean, I was jacked up.
So moving forward a little bit, you know, we talked about it in the beginning, like you had a lot of success, you know, 3-time NCAA qualifier, but your plebe year, you know, you had some struggles. You weren't the starter. You know, you got like, you know, you shared some time, weren't the guy, AIWAs. You know, talk about just coming in and kind of adjusting to college wrestling a little bit as a plebe, and that kind of transition for you.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest jump from high school to college is just there's no easy partners, and like there's no and there's no hiding in the room, or like not every match is going to be a cakewalk. And then and so that was a rude awakening of like I thought I was just going to be the best, and that was a rude awakening very quickly. Also, I had the idea that I was going to go 157 my freshman year, and as I told you, I was still growing, and I don't think I had the right maturity to handle kind of the stress of school. And then I also cut weight, lost weight terribly, and I got to give a shout out to Jordan Tom, because like he helped me along the way out to do the least amount of work and to actually lose weight. like I used to run for 45 minutes to like, because I didn't get it, and like and he showed me the way, type of deal with that. And
do you remember what you weighed going into plebe year like season?
I weighed I know I weighed like 177 or so.
Yeah, I was gonna say 180 probably. Yeah,
177, 180, and like it wasn't like strong. Once it was like flabby from Beast. like
MREs. Yeah.
It was just like because I'm eating all I want at Beast, but like I'm sweating a ton, but like I'm not getting any strength. It was just gross, and then I had to start slimming down, and it was also I'll talk about later, kind of like the success at West Point is like I didn't understand, like they want you to ask help, like with all the tutors, and then also like as I found out, there's people on my floor of like I realized like, hey, you're gonna be my Russian history guy, and like can we talk through this for like 30 minutes? Because if I do this reading, I'm gonna be up till 2 a.m. or something like that, or like the IT guy, or going in for AI. And then also reaching out to Ryan Tompkins was in my company, and he kind of helped me later in the season, but I never really pulled it together. And then also I don't know, I got caught up with trying to make the team and always trying to perform, and I just never really was dialed in as I was in later years. Like I never really put it together to my freshman year.
Who were you sharing time with?
What?
Who were you battling for a spot with? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was so it was a battle between Chandler Smith and John Belanger and I. And so it was really Chandler Smith and I until the end of the season. And I think Chandler talked about losing weight to 157. And so we were both miserable together. And I remember like us as roommates just being the most miserable room type of deal. And like we have, yeah. And like we're both just, I don't know, alpha mentalities. But like they put us in the same room and we're losing weight for like a spot that's not guaranteed. It was not a good time. And then at the end of the season, I mean, I never got my weight. Like I'll be honest, I didn't, after tournaments, I would stuff my face with, what was that pizza joint in Highland Falls?
Shades.
Shades. I would get a Shades pizza. That would be my treat. And I just didn't get the diet together. But at the end, John Belanger got the spot at 157. But I was grateful for at the end of the season, they brought me to EIWAs. And although I didn't want to go because I didn't want to see someone else start, I mean, Coach Young drilled with me kind of in the morning of, and then I kind of got refocused for the next season. And so that pushed me on and then I kind of realized that I'm not going 157 ever again. Like,
now, was that a self-realization? So let's get into the yuck year. So you made it through plebe year. Was that a self-realization, or did Paul or Heskett be like, you're an idiot? Like,
I tried to like really focus in the weight room in the off season, so they wouldn't get the idea of me going 157. And also, so they asked us like what weights we want to put in for FILA juniors, because we did that in the off season, and I put my weight in as 174, kind of putting my toes in the water, and they accepted it. And I had success there at FILA juniors. I think that year I was around placing, and kind of it showed like, hey, I can be successful and strong at this weight. And then I after my plebe year, I kind of stopped growing, and so it just kind of buffed out.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. You must have done nothing but leg work and squats and stuff. Because all I remember from you, other than you being really good and tough, is your legs were like tree trunks. And whenever Bernstein would try and like shoot a shot, like his fingers would come around, and he could never finish. You just crush them with your thighs. Like you have big thighs. That's all I remember. So it might be a weird memory, but
one of the rare shots Bernstein ever took against.
Yeah, the one time he shot in 65 matches.
He learned his lesson that one shot. Never again.
I'm not gonna get into that, but
no, that's like the best part of these episodes. We just get to trash on Navy the whole time.
Wait, we're all in the service now. We're past that type of.
I'm cutting that part out.
But so going into my yuck year, I kind of put it together. But I don't know if you knew this. Like I wasn't the starter for most of the year, actually. Alex Smith and I battled it out, and Alex Smith. So like the grapple at the Garden. Well, he went there. I went to. That's how I had so many matches. I went to. I forget some PA tournament. Like I think Coach Heskett would call them the Sunoco Opens or something like that. And that's how I got all my matches. And eventually Alex didn't continue the season, and I got the starting role. And because I accumulated so many matches, I was able to qualify for NCAAs that season. So, I mean, things started to put together, and I just kind of got a whole schedule type of deal. So that kind of led success in my yuck year.
That was at 174, right?
Yeah, 174. At 174. Okay. Yeah.
Let's talk about EIWAs. How'd that go? Your yuck year.
My yuck year EIWAs didn't go as planned, and I bet I don't think I would have an automatic qualifying that year, but I ended up being in the semis, and the guy who was the number one, I'm trying to remember. Like I wasn't a high seed, but I ended up being the semis, but the number one seed got upsetted by like the 8 seed that I beat. And then I just completely did not wrestle that semis. I remember feeling like I blew it type of deal. So I was one of those at-large bids after the EIWAs. And I was thankful for it. And I ended up winning some matches at the NCAA tournament. And that's kind of when things started to come together, realizing that, hey, I can win matches here and I can compete. Because kind of at the NCAA tournament, it's anyone's game. Like the record doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Huh. And Heskett was still a coach?
Yeah, Heskett was still a coach. And so, I guess I'll talk about that transition. So after my NCAAs, my sophomore year, I wrestled at FILA Juniors and actually took second at FILA Juniors, and that qualified me for the World Team Trials. That I wrestled out for the World 174 is like 79 kilograms, wasn't a world weight. So I then had to cut down to 74 kilograms, which is 163. And that the World Team Trials didn't go well for me. I remember, I think I wrestled a guy named Logan Massa, and like he was known to have a tank, and I got up by like 9 points. Like I got a trapped arm gut, turned him, and then the weight cut just got to me, and then I blew that lead, and I double dipped from the tournament. So that didn't go too well for me. But going into my junior year, so I'm trying to remember all that happened. I actually did an AIAD with Austin Wilding out in California. And then we came back for Beast One Cadre. And that's when I got a call about the coaching change with Ward. Sorry. That's when I got a call that Heskett was leaving, but we didn't know the coach. And I was actually I'm out in the field. I think we're doing like the M4 qualification range. And that's kind of when it all hit me. And like I debated kind of before Beast whether I wanted to try to get out, but I was like still like trying to leave West Point or not. And then this happened, and I kind of felt like I still got to do my my leadership detail. There's not getting out of that or anything like that. But I remember kind of what helped me decide to stay was I talked to Austin Wilding, who was also a Beast One Cadre. And like, I asked him like, hey man, are you thinking about leaving? And he was like, absolutely not. Like, this is like, if you ever talk to Austin and he's on this podcast, you'll see he had a vision about where he ended up being a Navy SEAL, and he had a vision of what he wanted to do and kind of being the top elite units. And I was like, all right, maybe he's not the best person to ask. Let me call Russ Parson. He was like very motivated, and like he was like, this is my dream. And I was like, from a guy who just kind of stumbled into West Point, I was like, no, let me talk to someone else, type of deal. And so I called Russ Parsons. And Russ Parsons, you don't know him, he was like a multiple NCAA qualifier and went to Blair Academy, and he was one of the top recruits. And I thought, if anyone else is thinking about leaving now with the coaching change, it's going to be Russ. And Russ had the exact same thing of like, absolutely not. Like, I'm a part of the brotherhood. I'm a part of something like bigger than myself type of deal. And I was like, dang, like all these people are really motivated. All right, maybe I'm the little crazy one just doing freaking out a little bit. But what ended up solidifying kind of why I stayed is my Beast One or Cadre experience and actually being a squad leader there and having that type of leadership and doing that. And that kind of helped me transition and to commit going into my junior year.
Did you think about it much like during your yuck year or talk to people, or was it kind of like you're grinding during the year and focused on the task at hand, and then you just think about it, or like did you have those conversations leading up to that during the year?
It was after I was the NCAA qualifier, and I felt like that was a decent something on my resume that I could talk to coaches with. And then I got second at FILA Juniors. And so I thought, hey, I started thinking about, I don't know. I don't remember if I made contact, but like with the Purdue coaches or anything like that, I'm like, I knew you had to go through, but I wanted to make sure I had their information if I decided to. Again, I didn't know one thing kind of about West Point, it keeps you busy. And so I didn't really have that much time to dwell on it. But there was a thought. I mean, just like at the end of every season, you think about it and like kind of why I wrestle and like why I go through this. But I decided kind of nothing's going to, I mean, I have the same vision where I want to be on the podium, and the school doesn't really matter. And I'll talk about the brother or the BHAW. Like, you're not going to find another team like this kind of out there. And that kind of helped me just realize I'm going to stay here. There was also the thing of like, I didn't mention this kind of why I chose West Point, but I coming from Indiana, there was a lot of people who go to these public universities and kind of, I mean, you'll see it like a lot of great wrestlers and they don't really do anything with their career, or they do a season and then realize the fraternity parties or all these parties are distracting and they quit the team. And I knew I wasn't going to get that at West Point. You're going to get wrestling in school, and that's what I got. So I just realized like this is the place I want to be, and I don't think and I started realizing all the tools that West Point had, and I felt like I could make West Point work. Yeah, I actually remember my first phone call with Kevin Ward or Coach Ward. Sorry. And I talked about like I only had like I didn't know who he was, and I just watched a video of him wrestling him wrestling some Minnesota guy, and like I think it was one of the tough Minnesota wrestlers, and he lost the match, and like that was my first interaction of like, hey, I saw you wrestle this match, and he was like, oh, of course you saw the match I lost type of deal, and I was like, I'm sorry, that's all I know about. I know about you. But
do you remember like the conversation? Like what do you remember anything about it other than
with Coach Ward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of talked about he came from a caliber of a program and where I knew Oklahoma State was very technical, and a lot of, and I felt like I saw what was it, Little Rock or
Ouachita Baptist.
Ouachita. Sorry, not Little Rock.
Yeah.
And like I saw the success and like how he kind of built that success, and I knew Oklahoma State was very technical, and I felt like that's what our program needed. And kind of I wanted someone to come in and like not have excuses of like West Point is so hard, let's just be really tough. Not saying that happened before, but that's kind of how the mindset was, like, hey, we'll be tougher than other people, while he brought the whole technique into it. And then, I mean, I still had Coach Young, and I was very comfortable with him. And throughout my time at West Point, I think after my sophomore year, I stopped wrestling with him because I got a little too big. But I still had him in my corner to coach. So I felt comfortable with the change. And, like, he called me and kind of talked me through it and saying, like, hey, the goals don't change. And that kind of let me, I think it was with him, of like take ownership with Coach Young and Coach Ward eventually. It was like, take ownership of your career. And I think, I mean, in the end, you own it type of deal. It doesn't really matter the coach, like you're going to put in the effort. Yes, the coach helps, but it's really how you just approach practice and things like that.
Very cool. What's up, B-Row? Where are we at?
Yeah, sorry. I think I just talked through some of the questions. I
didn't get to answer. I didn't get to ask my question because you were like, well, we're already talking about this, so I'm just going to breeze right into it. No,
yeah.
I think, we've heard a lot of different perspectives on, Coach Ward coming in. It's interesting to kind of hear from everybody, what the impression was like and how everybody takes that individually. Like when you said, and this is not related to Coach Ward, but when you said about, your personality and like, if I went to this school, if I went to Purdue, I worry that I'd get caught up in like the fraternity and drinking and like only wrestle like a year or two. That was one thing that I always thought about. And then when I talked to other, like, potential recruits or people interested about West Point, like I think about just those distractions that you don't have at West Point. I wonder if it's like, if you were to take personality tests or whatever before you go to college, you make those decisions based on those things. It makes me think about that dynamic a little bit more. This is like a little bit of a tangent from Army wrestling, but that it made me think like how much of an advantage you are at West Point because of that factor.
Yeah. Now I'll speak to this kind of freshman and sophomore year are going to be tougher at West Point because you see all your friends at your state schools doing all these activities. But then come your junior year and senior year, you're moving on, looking for the future, and they're still doing the same stuff. So it's like you feel like you've grown a lot more. Not to compare them and like it's just different, but like you feel like you've grown a lot more as a person. I mean, that's kind of what the whole West Point's about, is to make you grow as a person.
No doubt. So what were your first impressions of? I know I'm kind of going off script here, B-Row.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so you get through that summer, you decide to commit, going into Cal year, new head coach. So talk about the dynamic, the different, like how the room feel versus from previous to Kevin. What was his approach, and how'd you feel about that?
I think I spoke to it forward where he didn't give us kind of like no slack really when it came to our duties outside of West Point. And then I know Logan talked about this, but like I never got like I understand now like kind of the Army-Navy rivalry, but that ticked me off too, seeing that clock where being an NCAA All-American, being an NCAA champion is our goal. Like this is just a stepping stone type of deal. And that came down, and then he changed up kind of the room, and like it got I would say the room was a little rustic, I guess, before he came. He made some changes, and he got really technical and with us, and again he changed the preseason like completely, where we wrestled a whole lot more, and just like this is exactly what we needed. And then he also brought I forget, I don't know if it was my junior or senior year, he brought on Coach Chianuma, and like that was a big thing for me as a wrestling partner and as a coach too, because he was also my size, and just having someone to work with him. And then Ward also pushed like going to Doc Z, going to these tutors, and going to like getting your diet in order, getting your sleep. And like, I mean, Coach Heskett did that too, but it was like a lot more focused and a lot more, I guess, promoted in to like for our routine type of deal. And then I guess he pushed a little more of just like, hey, we're at wrestling practice. Like don't think about all the outside distractions, like all the finals or base finals or T's or whatever, I forget, WPRs. I'm trying to remember them all. Or the Sammys. Like when you're at practice, this is your time to train. Don't think you can't control anything else. And that kind of internalized with me.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, B-Row. What else?
So moving into your senior year, and you said, so when you start, you said one thing earlier, you started wrestling when you were 6 and your brother was 4, but you guys had more of a gap, like, cause you were a senior at West Point when he was at prep school. So did he, he get held back?
Yeah. So my birthday was in February. So I was like young for my grade, and then Ben ended up getting held back a year. I'm making sure the math makes sense. He ended up getting not held back, but just like started school later. So he was older in his class. And then he went to the prep school, and then I went straight in. I think that explains the gap type of deal. Cause I was a senior in high school when he was a freshman. Yeah. So that explains. It's because then he went to the prep school. And so that kind of explains the gap.
So we haven't done an episode with just your brother yet, but
right.
Talk about that a little bit of like, you being there as a senior, him being at the prep school. How much interaction did you have? Like, did that affect your, first year, like from a wrestling perspective or personal perspective, just having him close? Talk to that a little bit.
it was nice, and I could keep an eye on him. But I mean, I was still driven, and like wrestling takes up a lot of your time. I would see him because like I guess the little trick of the trade is you have to walk all the way up in the parking lot for your car, and it was like a 25-minute walk. I kept my car with my brother, and so like because they could park directly at the prep school. And so like he had access to my car, but anytime I needed my car, he would drive it down to me, and I would drive it back up, so I didn't have to do that walk. And then so I saw him a decent amount kind of with that, like on the weekend. I'm like, hey, I need my car. I want to go. I don't know, go out or something like that, or if we want to get dinner. And then I saw him during the club practices. I didn't like my brother and I weren't really, even though he was a 74-pounder, I didn't really drill with my brother because I think in the Tom episode, they say like it could get heated. And if you see our two wrestling styles, my brother's very, I don't know, very loosey-goosey kind of. He does that hip thing or stuff like that, and like the butt scoop or whatever that's called. Boot scoop. Yeah, and he would do that. And if I got hit with that on him, I think I just straight out almost like tried to punch his face like that. Like just yeah, I got heated, and like the big brother mentality. Like a couple times I would wrestle with him, but I didn't really. I mean, also I was like a mature 174-pounder. He was still growing, and like I didn't want to just muscle him type of deal. So yeah, so I didn't wrestle him too much. And like even as the athletic intern, I tried to. I'll only give him tough goes. Like
how did he get to the prep school? Didn't he end up having like a 4.9 or something crazy?
I want to give some trick of the trades, but I told him how I didn't get into the prep school, and so there might have been some early work to ensure that he got into the prep school.
Was that designed so that like because you're
it's like you already knew it because what?
Say that again, B-Row. Can you hear us?
That last part cut out a little bit. What was that last part you said, Brian? It's cutting out.
Tricks of the trade, but
yeah, okay.
Ben knew ahead of time that he wanted. I recommended. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? All right.
Brian, B-Row, what tier 2 hotel are you staying at right now?
Dude, I'm in a Courtyard Marriott. I should be good right now. It was weird. It cut out and then it came back in.
I'm in North Carolina. It could be this. I'm not putting down Spectrum, but I mean, I survived 6 hours of class a day so on my iPad and didn't cut out.
It's definitely on my end. I should have got the premium internet package. I expect a negative COR from Ty after this, so
yeah.
I'll learn.
Anyway, so Brian, you told him, yeah. What exactly was it like? Don't take chemistry classes or something? Because
it was just Ben. So Ben knew ahead of time, and like we knew how to apply. Again, he took my advice and didn't do what I did, kind of like not knowing what West Point was. And I kind of recommended for him to go to the prep school because I think that would have helped with my own maturity. And so we knew ahead that he wanted to go there. Now, and so I'm not saying like where I retook SAT school, like test, like, so I could get a scholarship at Purdue or something like that. Like, I don't know if this is good for TV or for a podcast. Ben took one. I believe Ben took one SAT and this is good enough for the prep school.
Yeah, no, that's smart, man. I wish I would have gone to the prep school, 100%.
Yeah, but there's an opportunity cost, and so
yeah,
and, yeah.
So okay, let's get through your Cal year. So how did that end up? How did you perform through your Cal year? So you owned the weight, right? Like,
yeah,
I felt the weight.
Yeah, I felt comfortable, and going to the NCAA tournament, I felt really good. I think I only ended up winning one match at the NCAA tournament. Well, I won like 2 matches the year before. But I mean, I think I came in as I wrestled a guy named Logan Sturley in the first round. I think it was the 6th seed, and went down to the wire. And then I won my next match, I think, pretty easily. I forget the match after that, but I mean, I felt although I didn't win more matches in the NCAA tournament. That just brought back. I remember the EIWA tournament. That's when I went on a double and choked myself out.
Oh yeah.
I completely forgot about that, and probably because it was like I was on the double, and like it was just a weird position, and I was like scooting to get it, and I passed out, so I didn't end up getting a automatic bid again. But like I was allocated a bid like for the conference, so I was easily at large bid. I completely forgot about it. There's some matches that I don't look up on Flow Wrestling, and that's one of them. And it's that one, and I think the next match immediately after it was like a 45-minute match with a guy from Cornell that I ended up losing, and like it was like blood. It was just one of the longest matches. I have not looked at those videos since then. But going into the NCAA tournament, like I felt like things were coming together, and I felt pretty confident going into my senior year that this was gonna be my year to be an All-American. Yeah, so I didn't do any. I'm trying to think of like junior to senior year. I did CTLT, and I talked. I mean, I was going to mention this later, but if you have if you have a good conversation, you can kind of help out where you go. And I was able to get a CTLT out in Fort Carson, where the WCAP guys are. And so I kind of, I was with the field artillery unit for like a week. And then I convinced my, my commander saying, hey, can I hang out with John Anderson and train with the WCAP guys? And I had an exposure to that. And then I think we did a PYAD, and then going into senior year. Yep. Should I talk through senior year?
Yeah. I mean,
Nothing.
And you come into your senior year, and now you're like a 2-time NCAA qualifier.
Right.
Kevin's been there a year, and some people have talked in the past. First year was a little rough with Kevin being there. He didn't know West Point that well, and like from what I heard, is like pushed you guys really hard. The second year you kind of like settled in, understood some things a little bit more. How did that change maybe your focus? Coming into your first year as a leader in the program, returning 2-time qualifier, and then kind of being that leader on the team.
Yeah, and so going into the senior year, I was actually not picked a captain of my team, and I kind of talked it over. Javier Rodriguez and Tyler McLeese were the captains in our class, and I talked it over with Coach Ward, and kind of the focus was to be an All-American. And once I kind of internalized that, all right, I'm not going to be as vocal as a leader on the team, but like I'll kind of show through my actions, because working hard in the weight room, working hard in the classroom, and everything kind of came together my senior year, in the sense of like really going with Doc Z, going in with tutors. Classes were a little bit easier than my junior year and sophomore year. It was like I got my schedule pretty down, and like doing individual sessions during the day, doing a lot more recovery with our trainer at the time, and doing ice baths and things like that, getting my body ready for the season. It felt pretty good going into the season, and I felt strong. I felt great. Felt big. I felt good. And like going in the season, I had a lot more success in the previous seasons. I maybe didn't as play. I don't know if I placed at all in these tournaments like the Clip Keen or the Southern Scuffle or all these other tournaments. I didn't place that high, but starting my senior year, I'm starting to place at these tournaments where there's All-Americans. And throughout the season, I know I beat the guy from Penn, and I beat a couple guys that were like on the verge of being an All-American that season. And so I felt pretty confident going into my EIWA tournament and then going into the NCAA tournament. I wrestled Brian Riobuto about 20 times that season too. And so like just as much as I wrestled Jaden Bernstein, I wrestled Brian Riobuto. And that was always kind of where I am, because he was a NCAA runner-up of like kind of where I am into making a run at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, rewinding back a little bit to when you talked about like deciding not to be a team captain, and that I never really thought through that process before. Like, I guess you're in a position and you become the team captain. I feel like there's not like discussions about it. I feel like that's really interesting that like you step back and you thought through that, like what is best, what is best for me, what's best for these other individuals, and also what's best for the team. I feel like you can dive in a little bit more into that, because if it really interests my psyche, and like thinking through that process.
Yeah. So I will say there was a discussion kind of after. I don't want to kind of, it's just kind of, he named the captains without kind of talking to us, but after, I mean, I didn't really say like that this is something that I wanted. And then I will also say I wasn't the best, like as good as I was with academics and good as I was with wrestling, I wasn't the best military-esque when it came to
marching, obviously.
What?
Marching.
Marching, or just kind of being there. I don't say I was the typical course squatter, like, but I evaded being around the company area a lot of time for a lot of things. I think I was like
a little bit. Hey, we know what you're saying.
Yeah, I think I was like put as the first respect officer. And like there wasn't a respect officer. There was only like a respect NCO or something like that. But they just gave that position to me and another football guy as like, this is what we'll give you for your.
Yeah, man, hey, trunk room officer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like the highest position I ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. But and so I mean, I think they thought critically, and in hindsight, I was glad I didn't take some of that role, because I had no interest in correcting people's haircuts. I mean, it was like, it would be the pot calling the kettle black kind of deal if I corrected people on their shoes or ironing or like really being cutthroat for this. I'm not saying I was late to anything or stuff like that, but I was always right on time kind of deal. And I've kind of reverted to being 15 minutes early, as evident for this for this call, because the military has forced that into me.
Yeah, for all the listeners out there that don't know, we pretty much hop on whenever we say we're going to do this at like 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Me and Ty will hop on like, right then. And every other listener before this, I feel like has done that too. Brian hops on 15 minutes earlier today and texts us. He's like, "Hey, I'm on." We're like, "Whoa, this is." I didn't realize that you weren't like that at West Point. I figured that's not like, because my impression of you is like, "Hey, he's got like a 4.6 GPA, extremely buttoned up." Now I find out, you grew your hair out, no military bearing, West Point. Now you come full circle.
Yeah, I know. It's well, I think it's just kind of after some conversations with some people starting off as my young LT days, I was kind of set expectations, and having the old major kind of being on the call, I thought he was going to be early as well, but I realized he lived civilian life.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can't tell you how much time I've wasted as a civilian being early to meetings. I mean, it's just, it doesn't happen. Well, good, man. All right, so senior year, you're feeling good. You're feeling great. So
right.
Going to EIWAs, I think you were starting to tell us like you going to these tournaments, placing high.
Yeah,
Real Buto was like your marker.
Yeah, I made the finals of the EIWAs. and I wrestled Brian Rioboto again in the finals, and it was a lot more competitive match than what it was prior. Like as the season, like there were ebbs and flows. That like I think one time in the season I got teched by him because I just had a complete meltdown. But going to this match, I think he won like by 3 or 4 points. I don't know, but like I had a couple takedowns on him, and I mean he's just a real scrappy guy. And so I felt pretty confident in like going into my tournament of like, cause he came in as the number 2 seed into the NCAAs. And I felt really good. And I was seeded for the first time at the NCAA tournament. I felt good. The one good thing about like, some people look at it as a negative of having spring break during the NCAA time, but I'm thankful for it because I had a week fully to get West Point out of my system and to really focus on the NCAA tournament. And it was in New York, so there wasn't a lot of traveling with that. And I felt really good. I won my first match pretty handily, and I go into my second match. The guy ended up being an All-American. I just remember, I think he reversed. I was winning going into the last 30 seconds, and he reversed me, and I just didn't get away. And I felt, and I mean, I still kick myself for this today. Like he didn't feel crazy better than me or anything like that. I just didn't get it done. And he ended up making it to the semifinals and being an All-American. And then going in the back end, I won another match, and I made it to the round of 16, and just lost to, I think he was the 3 seed and ended up placing 3rd or 4th or something like that, like the ultimate road warrior. But yeah, he beat me, and I felt good about how I competed, and I felt competitive. I beat some of the All-Americans that season during the season. Some of the All-Americans at the tournament during the season. So I knew I was right there. I just didn't get it done. It was frustrating, but kind of moving forward from that, and then everything settled about, all right, now it's time to be a lieutenant. And I actually got started. I didn't do any, like, get my knees checked out or anything like that until after season. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but like immediately after the NCAA tournament, they were supposed to do like a scope on my right knee. And then they found out I had a torn ACL in my left knee. And I was like, that explains a lot, like type of deal. And so I immediately had to go into surgery. So I was able to walk for graduation. And that kind of shifted my focus from trying to look at wrestling after college.
Yeah, you're way ahead of your time. Like screw Spencer Lee, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I found out that that's like common, but it was just like after I remember our trainer was like Mary. She kind of was like she was opening the results because like they wanted to get my left knee just to have an idea of what a normal knee looked like for me because my knees just looked messed up. And that's when she was opening up the results and kind of just like looked at me and stared. And I was like, what's going on type of deal. And then it got to like, oh, I got to get the surgery now because like I have to walk for graduation and there's time for that. And I had to then get a medical waiver so I would commission and all that. So it was a quick turnaround.
Brian, I don't know if you don't remember this at all. So I was at NCAA's your first year.
Yeah.
I was there.
You were there too, Ty?
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember being. I think
the first night I was working. It was just after I left the army, but I was working in Manhattan. I came for one of the night. I think it was the first or second night I was there.
Yeah, remember Tommy had that like little social thing the first night of it. Yeah. I didn't come in town till the next day, but so the guy is. I remember you won your first match, and then Real Budo lost in the opening round to the guy that you had in the second round. I remember being so pumped, being like, "Oh my God, he's gonna walk, to the quarterfinals here." And then he's got like a 7 seed, like and then you blew it in that second round match, and I was so mad.
Thanks. It's just all about the humble experiences.
Where is that kid from? You remember?
The kid from Iowa State. And so I knew him on like
Weatherspoon or something?
Yeah, Weatherspoon. And so like I actually knew him from, he competed out in some of the freestyle trials and like I knew he was, and like I think he won the Big 12 like championship the week prior, but like he had some injuries during the season. So I knew he was tough. But I mean, I felt confident. I just didn't get it done. I guess blowing it might be a choice of words, but you know, it's I can't do anything now.
I mean, B-Row's not wrong.
It's not wrong. I mean, I had the path.
Well, I think Russ Parsons had a good path too, and like he lost. I just remember that round being so mad. You guys had it. You guys, that was a.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I didn't get a takedown on him too, and again, all I had to do was get an escape, and then he won by like one. Yeah, it was rough.
Not to bring back harsh memories. We like went past.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I gotta bring this up.
We're bringing up like getting choked out, Rio Dudo losses. Let's get it on. Getting surgeries.
Yeah. Well, so we appreciate you sharing all that, man. And then so you make it through the surgery. You obviously walk your graduation. Then so talk post graduation. What's your path till now?
Yeah, so I was going to be an athletic intern, and B-Row, I don't know if you knew this, but that was the first year that they're going to bring Will Simpson and the captain to be a coach at the prep school. And so instead of being I was a fill-in prep school coach until he arrived. And like I could still, like at that point in the season around August or so, I could wrestle. Like I just made sure I didn't try to do any funk rolls or stuff like that. But I actually transitioned to be a coach, or I think they call athletic intern at West Point. And I just stayed with the main team, and I was grateful for that because I was able to be there with my brother, and kind of also like immediately following getting out of wrestling, I was like focused on getting my brother ready, trying to talk to all the freshmen and get all the old math WPRs and stuff like that, so he will not have the struggle that I did. Now I forgot that he went to the prep school, and he's got if you talk to my brother, he's pretty social and a pretty likable person. And so like he had all his friends and all the prep school hookups. So I didn't have to worry about that. But it was an interesting role to be there. And then also, again, I talked through kind of how I didn't really understand West Point going in. And now I wasn't recruiting, but I was giving tours. Like I was the main pick people up from the airport and drive them to West Point. So I made many uses of my podcast, going to JFK and going to LaGuardia and Newark. And I kind of had this, it got a little scripted towards the end, but I would see like someone kind of like a Brian Harvey of like, this kid doesn't understand what West Point is. And so I'm going to try to fill in the gaps just a little bit as much as possible. And then like, funny enough, you talk about knowledge and stuff like that. I started like regurgitating knowledge of giving West Point tours and like talking about what's wrong with the statues and how many lights at columns. And so it was a pretty cool experience. I guess a little side note, what was really fun was that's right when Pokemon Go started too. And so a couple times I would take breaks and battle at Trophy Point at the gym there. I know that's just random fact, but I just thought about sometimes when I wanted to take a lunch break, I'll hit the Trophy Point and battle it out. And then I found out that the app was secretly mapping everything.
What did you branch and where did you post?
Yeah. And so I branched in parts. I didn't have.
You didn't listen to Major Reedy, but
I didn't listen to Major Reedy. I think I told you. I don't know if you remember this. I told you why I chose field artillery, and once I told you, you kind of just looked at me and just said, "It's not worth trying to." I
don't remember. So I remember my reaction, but I don't remember the exact words.
so I had a decent GPA, but kind of military bearing brought it down. So I think I was around like the 390s or 400s, but I didn't know kind of when I was post, because there's always a rumor that like all the AIs will have to post with the rest of their class. And I was kind of indifferent about where I wanted to go. And so my logic was, if I go field artillery, not putting down field artillery, but usually the best and the brightest aren't selected top. And like of the pure field artillery officers, I was like the number 2 officer in that class. And so when you asked me why I chose it, I said I wanted to go to Germany. And then you just looked, but I didn't want to add so. And then you just stared at me and just walked off.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
So I ended up getting Germany, and I supported the 2nd Cavalry. So I went to FA Bullock after I was an AI. Then I went to Germany, and then immediately going to Germany, they sent me back to go to Ranger School. Did that, came back to Germany, and spent the next 2 years there in the 2nd Cavalry Regiment doing striker stuff. And like, it was a really cool experience. I know David Farr mentioned some of because he ended up going to Edinburgh for university. So like I did multiple trips out there and visited him on my 4 days. And then who else? Russ Parsons got to Italy. And so there's a couple trips with him of us going to like Croatia. And like there's always a rotating unit. And so I think we saw Ryan Tompkins out in Prague, like type of deal. And so it was a really cool experience. And like I got to travel a whole lot when I was there. Towards the end of my around 2019, that's like the decision matrix of where I wanted to do in whether I wanted to get out, stay in, continue in field artillery, or VTIP out. And that's when I heard about psychological operations. Again, it's a small branch and didn't really know what it was, but I looked at that and it seemed kind of aligned with, I was an econ major, so a little bit of psychology and just behavioral, studying human behavior kind of was in my general interest outside of the Army. So it kind of aligned to that. And I decided I wanted to stay in and get 3 more years. And I knew PSYOP is only located at Fort Bragg. And so that kind of helped my decision because my whole family, I know I'm from Indiana, but my whole family moved to Southern Pines right now. So it's kind of like everybody loves Raymond, like just stopping by the house, like unannounced and things like that. I go from like 3 years not seeing them in Germany to hanging out with them a lot, and it's pretty good. Ben is the only one not here with us right now. He's out doing some training at Ranger School.
Yeah, we'll have him on the show here hopefully in about
he's I took down the calendar of what day he is, but I think he's about to start mountain patrols. We're really hoping that he stays and goes forward because he'll end up being in Hunter Wood's company in Florida if he doesn't recycle.
Yeah. That's right. What did he branch infantry?
Who, Ben?
Yeah.
Ben branch artillery as well. So like he kind of, he talked about kind of why I chose, and he did something similar, but like when West Point, everyone who's infantry is very, very motivated. And for and it's kind of, you see the energy when people talk about infantry, and then I talk about what they're going to do. And if you don't have that, like right at the very beginning, it's kind of like, you know what, I'm going to try something else. And I'm grateful that I did it, and I think it was field artillery was a good fit for me. Sure. And so I think he did something similar. So like he actually went from Fort Sill. He was an AI as well at the prep school, and then went to Fort Sill, and then went from Sill straight to Ranger School. So
good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got your 5-year reunion coming up.
Yeah.
You told me, I think we were texting about you're not going to go. How do we get you to go?
I didn't realize it was September 11th weekend. We'll see. Like I'll have to talk to my instructors, but like they're pretty. As much as I would like to risk it, like if somehow I delayed, it's pretty much if you miss one day of class, you recycle the whole course again. It's kind of, and they're not afraid to do that. But I'm not sure what would convince me to make that happen. But it's a good plug. I'm looking forward to, like, I'm having discussions because, as you know, there's a lot of wrestlers around Fort Bragg about possible Army-Navy football meetup. I'm not sure what the schedule and whether the wrestling team will be there at the Army-Navy football game, but that's what I'm looking forward to that. But hey, if you're in the area, go to the 5-year reunion. The 5-year reunion is also kind of just a little bit weird since we're all still in the, like most of us are still in the Army type of deal. So it's like the 10 years kind of when you're farther away. I think I'm still a little bit, I went back to West Point to see my brother for Thanksgiving, but I don't have a crazy innate desire to go back there immediately.
Yeah, so I asked that too because so that reunion weekend is also the 2001, 2006, and 2011 reunions for the 2015 and 10-year reunion. So I'm trying to get a little reception going for all the alumni to so if you're up in the West Point area, that September 11th weekend, shoot me a DM, shoot us a message. We'll get you tied in.
I didn't even think about, I mean, that's how my brain works. I didn't think about there's also a 10, 15, and 20. All right. That's like that's a horse of a different color. All right. I'll think about it now. Are we going to go to the Zulu Lounge or are we going to, where are we going?
It's just going to be a little reception right after on Saturday morning after the review. So there's not a lot of like good times during the reunion weekends, because every class is doing their own little thing. But there is a good little gap between like the review on Saturday morning before the start of the game at 11:30. So just like a little reception outside the wrestling room is what we're probably thinking.
Okay. All right. I'll try to rally up the class of 2016.
Yeah. So I gotta ask one question.
Okay.
Tyler McLeese, he's gonna call me Big Tech again if I don't ask this. Who would win in a wrestling match between you 2016 versus your brother 2020?
Who would win?
Yeah.
So
at the NCAA tournament.
At the NCAA tournament, Ben was a gamer at the NCAA tournament. Like the one thing about me and like my career like ended, and then Ben is like first time making to the NCAA tournament, like made it to the round of 12, just like that. Like he pulled up a lot of upsets. So I'm trying to think. I think if I get him in, I don't know. I think it would go down to the wire. I'm not sure. He's I don't want to admit that Ben might have the upper hand at the NCAA tournament. If this was during season, I like my chances like a lot more. But Ben beat the 6th seed, and then he almost upsetted someone else. Like I was really excited because Ben didn't get the NCAA tournament his senior year, and so I thought he was definitely going to All-American then.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to cop out and not give an answer. I think it would just be I'll let the fans decide type of deal.
We had one other question come in. I won't say who, but it is an Army Wrestling alumni's daughter. And she asked if you would still swipe right on her 6 years later. I won't name names. I'm just throwing that out there so that I don't get censored. Or I don't get called out for censoring the questions. But before we go, who do you want to hear on the show in the future?
Well, to answer yes first.
You know who it is?
What?
You know who it is?
Yeah, I know who it is. And then think that even because I think whose daughter it is will also listen to this podcast as well, and so it's that's pretty funny. You know what? Yeah, I'll just leave it there. For the respect of the program and to keep this, so who would I like to see on the show? I think they've been mentioned several times, but someone who I competed with my freshman year, John Belanger or Austin Wildy, kind of talking about that Navy SEAL aspect. Someone that people might not know, Casey Smith. He's civil affairs, and he did his Mormon mission while at West Point, and then he also studied abroad. And so I think that would be just an interesting perspective of like how he did that during the program. I made sure to see if like they've ever, I don't know if they popped up on Ward's weekly updates or something like that, but how is the Colonel Cook or like Colonel Messett retired Colonel Cook, the tanker, not been on yet, or Messett?
He won't come. He refuses. He won't text me back if I ask him about it.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't got to the bottom of it. But he does not want to be on here. Not in a disrespectful way. I think he doesn't want to be in the limelight. Is like kind of the
yeah.
And we don't.
What you ask him is just to have a soundbite of him yelling BHAW, because and just like that somehow enters the episode. Or if like you have like a POW and it's just BHAW and that starts the like video cam or something like that, and with his voice. Because I remember, because he would always go like be hard kind of and BHAW mix during my matches, and I, even if I was like he was across the gym, I remember him saying that. Yeah. So I think everybody knows like he gets pretty riled up during Army wrestling matches and Army football games. So I think there has to be at least a soundbite.
I think B-Row's getting his room service or something. Like, would you order room service?
I ordered DoorDash before the episode, and yeah, and they're like calling me, like I'm like I answered, hung up, and like shut up. No, I didn't say that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You're good. And then lastly, I know third one, but I guess my brother to hear, like maybe he'll answer that question on maybe Tyler McLeese will stoke the fire and put that in on his podcast in the future.
Yeah, maybe we can get you guys back at West Point, before a football game, have a wrestling match, really maybe next football season we can introduce it, that way he's fully recovered from Ranger School.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be something. I don't know if you saw Ward's fake match with Alton, but maybe I would try to get that something like that going where the ref was in my favor.
I actually rewatched it this weekend. I put it on Instagram.
You're probably what I saw it off of, because
that was so entertaining. Like, I don't know if I think it was put out before like Flo really got all the views and like knew what they were doing. But yeah, very underrated film there.
I guess that's a plug. If you haven't seen that video, go on B-Row's page.
Yeah, well, I'll put the link in our bio.
Okay.
But hey, this is a long one, but I appreciate you going into detail, about all this and really opening up. This was a lot of fun. I feel like I learned a lot about you. Yeah,
it's been good. I'm glad. I enjoy this podcast. I enjoy listening to it on my drive into work, and it's always nice to hear about where other guys are. And so I sneaky know where people are, like before I talk to them on the phone. Of like, oh, like with Logan Everett, like, oh, how's Virginia going? How's his pace? And it's kind of like, how'd you know that? Like type of deal. So, and it was like, I listen to the podcast.
Well, Brian, good luck with the rest of your course. Man, I know that's not easy for sure, that language, but I'm sure you'll crush it as per normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, West Point has prepared me to endure suffering, so I enjoy the grind.
Good deal.
It was nice
Hey,
talking.
good luck.
Appreciate you hopping on. I'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to the BHAW Radio Show. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. If there's something you'd like to hear on a future show, reach out to us on any of our social media, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Or you can reach us at email, bhaw.radio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and as always, go Army, be Navy.